Milo earned $51,000 last year. He managed to save 400 of them. Nobody robbed him. The other $50,600 did not vanish. It left the way water leaves a bathtub with the plug pulled out. Steadily and without drama, through 100 small holes Milo never thought to look at. A coffee here, a subscription there. A thing he bought at 11:47 at night because the button was large and the regret was scheduled for later. Milo is 28 years old. He works a junior job at Big Cheese Industries, a company that makes cheese and reports about cheese and quarterly reviews of the reports. He is not stupid. He is not lazy, exactly. He is, by almost every measure, ordinary. And like most ordinary rats, he is quietly, persistently broke, and he does not entirely understand why. So here's the question that hangs over the next 30 minutes, and it is a blunt one. Why is Milo poor? Not poor like a tragedy. Poor like a default setting. Poor the way most rats are poor, while earning enough money that being poor should not, on paper, be possible. Is it the spending? Is it the not investing? Is it something Milo was never taught, in a game he has been forced to play every single day since he was old enough to want things? That is what Milo is about to try to find out. Over the next 30 minutes, Milo will fail a 3-question test he did not know existed. He will try the obvious fix and white-knuckle his way into giving up. He will meet a rat who got it right the slow way, and another rat who will explain, without flinching, why getting it right is not equally available to everyone. He will hear a true story about a janitor and $8 million that rearranges what the word literacy even means. He will ask his uncle for the secret and get a question instead. None of it will make Milo rich. By the end, he will simply be one small, deliberate step less ordinary than he is right now. The wheel in the corner of the room will still be turning. It will just have someone, finally, watching it. To understand where Milo's money goes, you first have to understand that Milo does not know where his money goes. This is not a figure of speech. If you stopped Milo on a Tuesday and asked him what he spent last month, he would give you a number, and the number would be a work of fiction. He would guess low, the way everyone guesses low, because the brain remembers the rent and forgets the 40 small kindnesses it did itself along the way. The rent is $950, gone on the first before Milo can have feelings about it. Then there's the coffee, $4.79 every weekday morning, a drink that cost $2.49 the year Milo started this job. Milo tells himself he has earned it. He tells himself this every morning, which is roughly $1,200 a year of telling himself things. There are the subscriptions. Milo pays for 6 streaming services. He watches 2. He has, somewhere in the quiet machinery of his bank account, been paying $11 a month for the better part of 2 years for something he signed up for to watch a single show, and he has never once gone back to cancel it. Because canceling requires logging in, and logging in requires remembering the password, and remembering the password requires a version of Milo who does not exist at 11:47 at night. Once, about a year ago, Milo got a raise, $4,000 more a year, the reward for surviving a project nobody remembers. Milo celebrated. He upgraded his phone plan and his streaming tier and started getting lunch delivered on the busy days, which became most days. Within 4 months, the raise was gone, absorbed completely, invisibly, into a slightly more expensive version of the exact same life. His bank balance at the end of the year looked identical to the year before. He had earned more and kept nothing, and he could not have told you where it went, because each individual upgrade had felt small and reasonable and deserved. Economists have a dry name for this. They call it lifestyle inflation. The quiet tendency for spending to rise to meet income, so that a rat running faster simply stays in the same place, slightly out of breath. This is the part the angry videos get wrong, the ones that say the problem is the coffee. The coffee is not really the problem. The coffee is a symptom of the actual problem, which is that Milo has never once looked. He is running a household the size of a small business with no books, no ledger, no idea. He is flying a plane with the instrument panel taped over, and he is mildly surprised every month when the ground keeps getting closer. And then, one night, scrolling, Milo took a quiz. It was 3 questions. It looked like nothing. It was designed in 2004 by 2 economists, Anna Maria Lusardi and Olivia Mitchell, who wanted to know something specific. They had noticed that some rats sail into old age comfortable, and other rats who earned roughly the same with roughly the same education arrive at the same age with nothing. The 2 economists wondered if part of the difference was not income or luck, but something quieter: knowledge. So they built 3 short questions to measure it, and the questions became so good at predicting who would struggle that researchers now simply call them the Big 3. Here is the first one. Suppose you put $100 in a savings account that earns 2% a year, and you leave it alone. After 5 years, do you have more than $102, exactly 102, or less? Milo thought about it. 2%, 5 years. That is 10%, so 110 roughly. Milo guessed more than 102. Milo was right. The answer is a hair over 110, because the interest earns interest. That is compounding, and it is the entire engine of everything that follows, and most rats, when asked, are not sure. Here is the second one. Your savings account pays 1% a year. Inflation that year is 2%. After 1 year, can you buy more than today, the same, or less? Milo paused longer this time. Then he understood it, slowly, the way you understand a cold draft. If prices climb faster than your money grows, your money quietly shrinks while the number on the screen goes up. Less. He could buy less. Milo got it right and felt slightly sick because he realized his own savings account had been doing exactly this to him, in silence, for years. Here is the third one. True or false? Buying a single company's stock usually gives you a safer return than buying a mutual fund that holds many companies. Milo, who had recently put a little money into one exciting company because a coworker would not stop talking about it, said confidently, "True." The single company felt safer. He could picture it. He knew its logo. It is false. A single stock is riskier because if that one company stumbles, you stumble with it, whereas a fund spreads the bet across many. This is the idea called diversification, and it is the one rats get wrong most often. Only around 6 in 10 Americans know the answer. Milo was one of the 4. He had gotten one of 3 wrong. And when he looked up how everyone else does, he found the part that genuinely rattled him. In a large national survey in 2021, fewer than 30% of American adults answered all 3 correctly. Among adults under 35, Milo's own age group, only 14% did. 14. Milo read that number twice. He was not unusually ignorant. He was normally ignorant, which was somehow worse, because it meant the hole he was standing in was not his alone. It was where almost everyone was standing. This, then, is what people mean by financial literacy. Not a degree, not a gift, just the rules of a game everyone is forced to play and almost no one is taught. And Milo, having just discovered he had been playing it blindfolded, did what most rats do when they finally see the problem. He overcorrected, dramatically, and at midnight. The plan was austerity, total, righteous austerity. Milo decided, with the specific energy of a rat who has just felt shame, that he would cut everything. No more coffee, no more lunches out. He made a budget in a spreadsheet at 1 in the morning, a beautiful and brutal document that allocated him $40 a week for joy and the rest for redemption. He would claw back every leaking dollar. He would fix in 3 weeks what he had ignored for 6 years. It is a clean plan. It is also the plan roughly 80% of rats reach for, and it fails for roughly the same 80%, for a reason Milo was about to feel in his body rather than understand in his head. By day 4, Milo was making his own coffee in a machine he resented. By day 9, he was tired in a way that felt moral, like he was being good and it was costing him something vital. By day 12, a coworker invited him to lunch, and Milo, exhausted from being virtuous, said yes, and then said yes to dessert. and then went home and bought a $40 thing online to feel like a rat again. The budget did not survive the month. Milo felt worse than when he started because now he had failed on purpose with a spreadsheet as a witness. Which is when Victor said something useful, mostly by accident. Victor is older. Victor owns a home, a fact he mentions the way other rats mention the weather. Milo, deflated, asked him how he had done it, how he had gotten ahead, and braced for a lecture about coffee. Victor did not give one. Victor said he had never really budgeted in his life. What he had done, decades ago, when he got his first real paycheck, was set up an automatic transfer the day the money landed, a small one, into an account he pretended did not exist. He never saw the money, so he never missed it, so he never had to use willpower he did not have. He had not been disciplined. He had been, in his own word, lazy in the right direction. He had removed the decision instead of trying to win it every day. Milo listened and felt the difference land. He had been trying to out-discipline a system designed to defeat discipline. Victor had simply changed the system once and then stopped fighting. It was real. It had worked. But Victor had started in a cheaper decade, on a single income, in a town where a house cost what a car costs now. And Milo could not entirely shake the feeling that Victor's map, however true, described a country whose borders had moved. So he took that doubt to the one rat who would take it seriously. He took it to Eddie. Eddie reads. Eddie responds to a feeling with a footnote, which is exhausting, and which Milo needed. Before you decide this is all your fault, Eddie said, let us be honest about the part that is not. Because there's a story going around that poor rats are poor because they are bad with money. And the truth is more complicated and less flattering to everyone telling that story. Being broke, Eddie said, is expensive. When you have nothing, a $400 car repair becomes a payday loan at an interest rate that would be illegal if it were honest. When your balance runs low, the overdraft fees arrive. $35 at a time. A tax paid almost exclusively by the rats who can least afford it. You cannot buy the big, cheaper package because you do not have the cash today, so you buy the small, expensive one. Again and again, paying a premium for the crime of being short. Eddie pulled the numbers. More than a third of American adults, he noted, could not cover a sudden $400 expense with cash. That is not 30% of rats being frivolous. That is 30% of rats living with no margin at all, where one bad week becomes a debt that takes a year to climb out of. And the savings rate for the whole country, Eddie added, the share of income people actually manage to keep, has been hovering down around 4%. 4 cents on the dollar. That is not a nation of fools. That is a nation running close to the edge, where the gap between earning and spending, the only place savings can come from, has been squeezed thin by rent and prices and the ordinary cost of staying alive. So here's the deeper question, Eddie said, the uncomfortable one. Is financial freedom even achievable for most rats? And the honest answer is that financial literacy is necessary, but it is not magic. Knowing the rules does not give you a bigger paycheck or a cheaper apartment. It will not, by itself, save a rat with no margin. Milo said nothing, neither did the narrator, because it would have been easy here to pretend that knowledge alone fixes everything, and it does not. But Milo could not stop thinking about one thing. If income were the whole story, then the rats who earn the most would always end up the richest, and the rats who earn the least would always end up with nothing. And that, it turns out, is not quite what happens. A quick and honest pause. Milo is not a financial advisor, neither is the narrator. What follows is simply what Milo found in publicly available research and tried, clumsily, on himself. The story Milo found is true, and it is the one that changed the shape of the whole question. There was a rat, in the human version of the tale, named Ronald Reed. He lived in Brattleboro, Vermont. He pumped gas at a service station for 25 years. And then, when retirement bored him, he swept floors as a janitor at a JCPenney. He drove a second-hand car. He cut his own firewood into his 90s. He once parked far from a meter to save the coins. By every appearance, Ronald Reed was a poor man, and nobody who knew him thought otherwise. When Reed died in 2014, at the age of 92, his town discovered that he had quietly built a fortune of around $8 million. He left almost $6 million of it to the local library and hospital. There was a stack of stock certificates in a safe deposit box, shares in dozens of large, familiar companies he had bought and simply never sold. Some held for decades, the dividends quietly reinvested year after year. He had never earned a large salary. He had no special training. He read the financial pages and he stayed patient. And he let time do the only thing time does, which is compound. The writer Morgan Housel opens his book, The Psychology of Money, with Ronald Reed, and he sets him beside another man, a Harvard-educated finance executive who earned fortunes Reed could never have imagined, lived enormously, borrowed against it all, and went bankrupt during the financial crisis. One man swept floors and died rich. The other ran the machine and died broke. Housel's point, the one that lodged in Milo somewhere deep, is this: doing well with money has surprisingly little to do with how smart you are, and a great deal to do with how you behave. It is, Housel argues, a soft skill, where how you act matters more than what you know. There is one more idea of Housel's that Milo could not shake. Wealth, Housel writes, is what you do not see. The bankrupt executive was visible everywhere, in the big house, in the bigger boat, and all of it was borrowed. Ronald Reed's wealth was invisible precisely because it was real. It lived in the cars he did not buy, the upgrades he refused, the $8 million he never once spent on looking like he had $8 million. The things a rat owns are not wealth. They are the proof of money that has already left. Wealth is the money still sitting quietly in the account, doing nothing visible, which is exactly why almost nobody can see theirs and almost nobody builds it. Milo sat with that for a long time, because it cut both ways, and he needed both edges. Knowledge was not enough, Eddie was right, but neither was income, or intelligence, or the hot stock his coworker loved. The thing that separated the patient janitor from the brilliant bankrupt was not literacy as a test score, it was literacy as a behavior. The boring, daily, unglamorous habit of spending less than you make, keeping the difference somewhere it can grow, and then, crucially, not touching it, not panicking, not chasing, not selling the moment things got loud. Red even owned his stocks as physical paper certificates, which meant selling required a trip to the bank, an annoyance that quietly saved him from his own worst impulses. His ignorance of how to trade quickly was, strangely, part of his fortune. So Milo stopped trying to become smart and started trying to become consistent. It is a smaller goal. It is the only one that has ever worked. He did not transform. Let us be precise about that, because the genre lies about this constantly. Milo built 3 small, boring habits, and he did them badly at first. The first was saving, safely, not investing in anything clever. Just a small automatic transfer, the way Victor described, moved to the day his paycheck landed, before his opinions about the money could wake up. Pay the quiet account first, live on the rest. He started with $100 a month, not because it was impressive, but because it was survivable. And survivable is the only amount that lasts. The point was not the $100. The point was the buffer, the thin wall between Milo and the payday loan, the thing that would turn a future $400 emergency from a catastrophe into an annoyance. The second was spending, wisely, which Milo discovered does not mean spending nothing. He had tried spending nothing. Spending nothing is how he ended up buying a $40 thing in revenge. The writer Ramit Sethi, in a book with a title Too Loud to Say Without Wincing, argues for the opposite of guilt. Spend extravagantly, Sethi says, on the few things you genuinely love, and cut everything else without mercy. Milo loved the morning coffee. It was, honestly, one of the better parts of his day. So Milo kept the coffee, on purpose, with a clear conscience, and instead killed the 4 streaming services he never watched, the $11 a month for the show he had finished 2 years ago, the small leaks he had never once chosen. He cut the things he would not miss so he could keep the one thing he would. The coffee was never the problem. Spending without looking was the problem. The third habit was the hardest, and it was simply looking, tracking. For 1 week, Milo wrote down every single dollar that left his hands, not to judge it, just to see it. The writer James Clear, in Atomic Habits, makes a quiet argument that you do not rise to your goals, you fall to your systems, and that the simple act of measuring a thing begins, almost on its own, to change it. Milo found this to be true and mildly unsettling. The week he started writing down the coffee was the week he noticed how many coffees there were. He did not forbid them, he just could no longer not see them. The taped-over instrument panel had a corner peeled back now, and he could see the ground. And knowing where the ground was changed how he flew. Around then, he mentioned all of this to Penny, who works 2 desks over and has never tracked a dollar in her life. Penny listened to Milo explain his spreadsheet, his buffer, his peeled-back instrument panel, and she asked him, not unkindly, whether he was happier. Milo opened his mouth to say yes and found he had to think about it. He was less anxious, he decided, which was not the same as happier, but was not nothing. Penny said she just spent what she had and tried not to think about later. Milo noticed he did not entirely envy her, and he noticed he did not entirely pity her either. And he went home and kept tracking, not because Penny was wrong, but because not thinking about later had stopped working for him sometime around the $412th dollar. He blew it in the 3rd week, a bad day, a big online cart, a familiar warmth as he checked out. The old Milo would have hidden it from himself. The new Milo, almost against his will, wrote it down. And then he forgave himself and kept going. And that, he slowly understood, was the entire skill. Not perfection, the returning. There was no secret technique hiding underneath the returning. The returning was the technique. There is a rat in Milo's family they call Uncle Warren. He is old and he says very little, and he has, by some accounts, far more than anyone suspects, though no one has ever seen him spend it on anything that shows. Milo called him, finally, and asked the question he had been circling for 30 minutes and several years. "Uncle Warren," he said, "what is the secret? How do rats stop being poor?" There was a pause on the line, the particular pause of an old rat deciding how much to say. Then Uncle Warren did not answer. He asked Milo a question instead. "Milo," he said, "do you know where your money went last year?" Milo started to say no. Then he stopped. Because for the first time in his life, for the last few weeks at least, the answer was yes. He knew. He had written it down. He could account for it. And he realized, sitting there with the phone warm against his ear, that this was the whole of it. Not a stock, not a trick, not a number to hit. Just the simple, radical act of knowing, of looking at the thing instead of away from it. The poor rat and the free rat were not divided by income or genius. They were divided by whether they could bear to look. Neither of them said anything for a while. It was the most useful silence of Milo's year. So Milo did one small thing, not a transformation, one thing. He kept the ledger going past the week, that was all. He had proven he could automate the saving, and he had, and it ran quietly in the background now. He had proven he could cut the leaks, and he had, but the looking, the daily, ordinary looking, was the one that required no money and changed everything. And it was the one a rat could keep doing forever, at any income, in any decade, in a cheap apartment or an expensive one. Ronald Reed read the financial pages every day for 70 years. Milo could write down a coffee. They were, Milo decided, closer to the same act than they appeared. Now, the question from the very beginning. Why is Milo poor? Here is the answer he arrived at, and it is not the one on the angry thumbnails. Milo is poor for 2 reasons that live side by side and refuse to cancel each other out. He is poor partly because the system is genuinely hard, because rent is high and wages are thin, and being broke is expensive in ways that keep broke rats broke, and no amount of cleverness erases that. And he is poor partly because no one ever taught him the rules, and so he played blindfolded. And a blindfolded rat loses even the games he could have won. Financial literacy did not make Milo rich. It will not. What it did was smaller and more honest. It took the blindfold off. It let him see which part of his poverty was the world's doing and which part was his own. And it gave him quiet authority over the second part, which turned out to be larger than he had feared and smaller than he had hoped. Milo did not get rich. As of tonight, he has a little over $500 now, a buffer growing slowly, an automatic transfer he intends to keep and will probably miss again in the spring, 4 fewer subscriptions, 1 coffee he no longer feels guilty about, and a ledger with his own handwriting in it. He is not transformed. He is just a rat who has started, for the first time, to look. The wheel is still there, in the corner of the room, turning. Milo has not escaped it. He has simply stopped pretending he cannot see it. And a rat who can see the wheel is already, in some small way, standing slightly outside of it. There is a next problem coming, and Milo can already feel its shape. Because now that he has a small buffer growing in a quiet account, a question is starting to itch at him, the one he got wrong on that 3-question test. The money is just sitting there, losing a little to inflation every year, safe and slowly shrinking. And somewhere out there is the idea that money is supposed to do something, to work, to grow. And Milo has no idea how that works or whom to trust. And the last time he tried, he bought one exciting stock on a coworker's word. What a rat is supposed to do with money once he finally has a little of it. That is the next thing we watch. Until then, one specific request, and it is not the usual one. Somewhere in the last month, almost everyone has bought one small thing they completely forgot about by the time the charge cleared. A subscription, an app, a thing that seemed urgent at 11:47 at night. Find that one charge, the one you cannot quite explain, and leave it in the comments. Just the thing and the amount. Milo is collecting them. He has a theory that the bathtub drains the same way for almost everyone, one small forgotten hole at a time. And he would like, for once, to see the whole tub.